allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Almighty God, as we gather, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, and we ask that you would bless those areas of the country that are having flooding, help the people that are there and things that are going on, and just help them cope with and move forward. But we ask that you would bless us, that we would continue to have a good summer, that you would bless our students and staff, and be with us as we make decisions tonight. Amen.
Amen.
And I don't think we have any public comments, so that brings us down to student and staff recognition.
And we do not have any.
No student and staff recognition. We do have the minutes that we received for the July 1st board meeting. Are there any corrections or objections to those minutes, or do we have a motion to accept them as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. The motion passes. And now that brings us down to personnel.
All right, so I am going to handle the reading of the personnel information here tonight. I'm going to pull it up first and make sure it's onto the screen. So, Nicole, I have.
You might want to read from the screen. There's an update on there, I see.
So the screen is correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so reading from the screen, we have resignations and retirement. Shannon Hartman, resignation extracurricular sign language interpreter. Hannah Bailey, resignation high school volleyball assistant coach.
And I recommend that these resignations be approved as presented.
Our superintendent's recommending that we approve the resignations as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions?
I have a question. I know that you all have a student that needs this sign language. Is that going to be covered?
It's posted and will be posted. We need a certified person for the
Okay.
position, so
And-
yes.
Okay.
We'll continue to post.
Any other questions? Then all in favor of approving the resignation of Shannon Hartman and Hannah Bailey, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. The motion passes. The resignations are accepted.
Item B under personnel, rescind employment of personnel. Lisa Raines, Energy Express bus driver.
And you have my recommendation that we rescind the employment of Lisa Raines as the Energy Express bus driver.
Superintendent has recommended that we rescind the employment of Lisa Raines. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions? Then all in favor of rescinding the employment of Lisa Raines as the Energy Express bus driver, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion passes.
Under employment of personnel, item C, we have one for tonight, Diana Redmond as Energy Express bus driver.
And I recommend that we employ Diana Redmond for the Energy Express bus driver route.
Our superintendent's recommending the employment of Diana Redmond. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. A motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions? Then all in favor of employing Diana Redmond as the Energy Express bus driver, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion passes.
Okay, under item D, approval of contracts, you have a listing for administration of medication, deafness services and case manager, MS exceptionality case manager, autism services and case manager, elementary music instructional coach, before and after school reading and math tutors, and communication coordinator. All those categories to be hired.
You have my recommendation to approve the employment as presented.
We have our superintendent's recommendation to approve the contracts as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions on this one? Then all in favor of approving all the contracts as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion passes.
Under item E, approval of non-paid coaches, Ryan Boggs and Jay Hartman.
And you have my recommendation to approve the non-paid coaches as presented.
Our superintendent's recommending approval of the non-paid coaches as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions on this one? Then all in favor of approving Ryan Boggs and Jay Hartman as non-paid coaches, please signify by saying aye. And opposed, no. Motion passes.
Under item F, approval of volunteers and chaperones, PCHS, Ryan Boggs and Jay Hartman.
You have my recommendation to approve these.
Our superintendent's recommending approving the non-paid chaperone, or I'm sorry, the volunteers and chaperones. I'm mixing everything up. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on this one? Then all in favor of approval of the volunteers and chaperones for Ryan Boggs and Jay Hartman, please signify by saying aye. And opposed, no. Motion passes. And nothing under leaves of absence.
Correct.
Finance.
Well, and actually for tonight, nothing under finance. The bill printout and discussion, I would like to move to the next meeting that is held. And financial update, nothing new under financial update other than we did attend some finance meetings this week and out in Stonewall, but nothing new to report. So that's all I have for finance.
We'll move past finance and past facilities down to old business. And under old business, we have policies for review.
Okay, policies for review. I have given the board members and superintendent notebooks. Most of those are the same as what was attached to the email, a couple updates, including a cell phone policy, which we will update on the attachments online. But for your purposes tonight, you can use the notebook that I've given to you, and we'll start in the beginning. We'll start with a summary of the policies, and then obviously this will be a first reading. It will go out for comment and review, and then we'll come back at a future meeting for a second reading and final approval. So I'm also going to go on to the Board Docs website. If you would ever like to log in to the Board Docs website like you do for other attachments, you can go to the draft policy section, upper right hand corner, go to district request, under draft, and then we're going to start with this April 2025 edition of the policy update. So that's what we have. And so I'm going to start with your handout. I'm going to start with the 2340. So you have on your first page, you have some summary of descriptions of the individual policies. So you have that for review and for reference. I'm going to start with going through the policies, making some quick notes about the policies on the screen, and you have them with you. And then any questions, feel free to ask tonight or certainly between now and the final reading. So 2340 is revised policy on field or co-curricular and extracurricular county-sponsored trips. Some of it is wording, talking about some basic philosophy about the importance of trips. And so that anything in green is a new language, anything in red with a strike through is deleted language. So this doesn't really change much of the nature of our current policy. It does add the language in green. It talks about out-of-state field trips more than 75 miles, approval process. And then it talks about some approval there, overnight travel, some information in there as well. If we have international field trips, like we're having international travel this summer, very soon, talks about information there. And then the other county-sponsored trips, and so it does update, highlighting a fair amount of information about the field trips. Any place that says an option that is not selected, then we are not selecting that option. So if it's in green, means it could be added, but if we don't put the X by it, we're not adding that for inclusion. So, and that's the basic information that we have. Again, fairly lengthy in terms of the strike-throughs, in terms of the green added language, but that's the proposal for 2340, which gets into those curricular and extracurricular trips. So again, if you have any,
JP, if it would help, if it would serve well in the areas that we don't choose, we could do a strike-through
right,
just to indicate that we are not going. Now, when it gets submitted to Neola, they will remove
right.
all the non-choices, but
We
if it
could
helps
for the next
you,
reading, yes, something, and some of us, there's various people that have done these updates, some of us put the strike-throughs and not, so we can consolidate that and make sure that we have strike-throughs for the ones that we're not choosing on that.
Is
So
that the
that's
preference?
where
We
we
can do
are.
that.
That's what we have on that 2340. 2413, AIDS Education Program. It is, again, it's provided based upon state board policy or other, or statutes that have been updated. It gets into updating some language on AIDS Education Program, 2413. Some of it's pretty small in terms of changing district to county, changing some language. So there's some options that are selected there with the X's to allow for those to be done. But a fairly short policy by comparison, just like one-page policy. 2413 is an update to the AIDS Education Program requirements. The next policy, 316001. And so in this Neola way of doing things, the 3000 series is for the professional personnel, and the 4000 series gets us into the service personnel. And many times the policies are the same, other than one may say 3160 in this case, one may say 4160. Sometimes there are differences, sometimes it's pretty much the same. So in this one, where it says school employees, it really is about certain professional employees for 3160, just kind of updating some language about that examination. The next one, 4160, is for the service personnel, so it just has some main language there as well. So that's why it looks like it's duplicated. It really is duplicated. It is basically professional and service in those calculations.
And that answers one of my questions, but
Yes.
I'll point out that in it says students, 4160.01 says students on the,
Right, that's how I labeled it when I saved it, so that was.
so that
fine.
just needs to be
Yeah,
updated
that
service
was,
personnel.
yes, when
Yes.
it was saved and titled, but that's right. So really, neither one have to do with students in this case, it's for employees.
That makes perfect sense
But
when
yes,
you
but
explain
that
it.
is,
Thank you.
3160 and 4160 for the two groups of employees that we have. 5112, entrance requirements. So that is, of course, entering into the school system. Again, some of it is just some language that gets in there. Eligibility as far as the age, and after the June 30th, July 1st deadline. Changing district to county a couple places. A record of anything again in green is new. Anything in red strike through is removed. Talks about the health check protocol, which I believe is something a little different, but still a protocol that we'll follow. So again, like a one-page update there on entrance requirements for that. Not a huge change, but it does include some language, required language to be in there, especially with health check. 5310, health services. 5310, health services. That, speaking of health check, it gets into a lot of the language there. So that first number of paragraphs under 5310 is new language. And it gets into the early screening and the health check and some of that language there. So that's all new language, 5310, health services. Gets into language that is chosen to work through with those. I think it changed the spelling or punctuation, capitalization of scoliosis there. But again, the main language is in the green updates there for 5310. 5320, immunization. And so I think you had some questions there with that one. I think Nicole put in a reference to the Commissioner of the Bureau of Public Health. Would be referred to as the Commissioner because the prior language did just say Commissioner and it didn't really specify who the Commissioner was. So there's that in there. And then green again is new and red strike through is removed. So it is an existing policy that's being updated. Talks about record keeping. It talks about the documentation from a licensed healthcare provider, and it goes on through. So not incredibly long, but it does have changes in green and removals in the red or pink strike through for 5320. 5321, tuberculin skin test. 5321. So this is students. I think Section 5000 series does deal with students as opposed to the others dealing with personnel. So this one gets into student information, changes some language, for example, from their personal physician to a licensed healthcare provider. I guess as we get away from the more traditional doctor's offices and more specialized emergent care and things like that. So has that basic information there. So again, that doesn't seem to be a huge change, but it does have an update under tuberculin skin test for 5321. 5460 graduation requirements. And so any of these that we present to you is our best attempt right now, and some of these are very long and lengthy, at giving you where we think these policies need to be as we get feedback and we look between now and final approval. If we have any revisions, even if they're minor, we will certainly make you aware of that as we work through this. So 5460 is graduation requirements. Going from the 23 to 24, I think the personal finance, and again, Derek or Nicole can speak more about this in expertise than I can. I will just say these are the graduation requirement updates. Do either of you want to say anything about graduation requirements?
I don't think.
Okay, all right.
It does have the PE that we're looking at as an option.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
For the interscholastic, so that they can get credit for being involved in 2 seasons, and then that might free up their schedule so that they wouldn't have to have a full year of PE their 9th grade year. So we have included that option.
Right. So again, we've so anything in green again is new. Anything in red is the strike through. So a lot of some of the same basic stuff, but at the same time, you can see some proposed updates, including the PE option that was talked about. And again, the 23, making sure we have the 24 hours with the credits that are in there.
And Dr. Lambert and I have spoken extensively about various topics like credit recovery, so that may be one by the next meeting. We may want to have some additional information and some more guidance in that.
I think we may want to address the 24 credits too.
Yes, so there may be some changes in the next reading.
Okay.
So the policy will basically remain the same, but there may be some minor changes coming forward. So this is a first reading. So 5460, graduation requirements. The next one is 5505. This is a new policy. Most of these are revisions of existing policies that I believe are 2 in the summary that are new. So this is a new policy, of course, with artificial intelligence, which is a separate policy in this day and age of copying things from all over the places. This is a new policy about academic honesty that's in there. So really it's not, I guess the whole thing could be in green, but it's not, but where we added, so the whole thing is new, does not exist currently, where we added at the county level, we had a choice to put in there use of AI without express permission / consent. Then there's a box to check on use of artificial intelligence tools for school work. That refers you then further to a student acceptable use policy under technology. Some of these things cross-reference, some of these things go to various different policies. So obviously a lot of the impetus for these policy in this case here is artificial intelligence, as it just leapfrogs a lot of people, how to keep up with it and what's the best use of it, and it has a use, but how do you put your hands around it? So that's where this is here, academic honesty. And I think you've always, go ahead.
JP, just to clarify that if the parent wanted to appeal, that would be to the county superintendent because they list it as a district administrator, so.
Okay, right, and so where student and or parent appeals within 5 business days, And then if the principal was a staff member responsible for the consequence being appealed, then it could be appealed to the county superintendent, defining what it means by district administrator based on that.
Now, is this a policy our students will get, or will they have to be told by the principals and stuff, or, I mean, being a new policy and stuff? I mean, how do they get this information?
Part of the student handbook?
Well, at the beginning of the school year, the principal always goes over the new policies with staff. And then the staff at the high school, I know that, they go through the handbook, the whole handbook on the first day. And that would probably be a good policy to either have a reference to it and to make sure that students are aware of those changes.
Just something like this, and especially the cell phone policy too, I think ought to be in their hands, each student's hands. I know it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of handing out, but.
The plan is to put under that section in the student handbook to see the attachment, because this won't be approved in time to get the handbooks printed, so we'll say see the insert, and so they'll have inserts of the policies that pertain to them that you all approve after we've submitted the handbook.
Very good.
And then once you put it on the website, you can have it all on the website, I guess. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, so that is 5505, a brand new policy, academic honesty. 5511 is a revised policy. I guess it is there. I know it's some counties it seems to be a big deal. We've never had too many issues, at least not at the county level, but obviously this is a lot of updated language, including the title, dress and grooming or dress and appearance. So we'll have to double check. And so we have the strike-throughs being removed language, the green being new language that's in there. And again, talks about enforcement of the dress code. I know there talks about protected speech. That's a big point of emphasis, is what are you allowed to wear if you're, making a statement, and where does that cross the line? And I don't have the answer to that, except here is policy attempting to clarify where that stands in terms of protected speech and where it may be prohibited if it falls into certain areas based on that. Talks about if you violate the rules, and then what happens if you cannot simply remove the clothing or conceal it, what some of the steps are based on that. So this is 5511, dress and grooming appearance for that one. 5600, student discipline, is a pretty lengthy policy. It really is a lengthy policy, and it goes on for numbers of pages. So at the bottom of your handouts, for each policy it'll say 1 of 1 or 1 of 2 or 1 of 17 or so. So if it's 17 pages, then it's a long policy, obviously. So student discipline, again, same deal as a lot of language between state board policy and legislature. You got emphasis on multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS. Is a lot of focus of this. And again, if anybody between Carrie and Nicole and Derek want to point out anything, I can simply say it has a lot of consequences, updating those. It has, behaviors, sanctions, and those sorts of things. And I think Carrie was one of the persons working through this diligently, and everybody looked at it. So it's a lot of information that's in there. If anybody else wants to point out anything in particular, but this is 5600 student discipline.
Does it have the new law about, or did the regulation pass that said that teachers had the right to kick the students out?
Carrie saying it.
Yeah. Is that in here? I don't remember seeing it now that I think about it.
Now that you say that, I'm not sure that I remember reading over it in here either. I mean, it's a state
Code.
It's a state code, and I wonder if there's a difference between that being what teachers, procedures for teachers, whereas this is what happens for students. Do you know what I mean? Like the separation of teachers the teachers follow these steps, and these are the consequences for students based upon behaviors. I wonder if there's a separate policy.
I mean, it could be woven in here.
We can do some more research.
We'll look into that.
Yeah.
Do some more research.
We'll look into that.
Yes. Yeah, so again, as board members, as we'll talk to others, certainly take a look at this between now and the next time we look at it. So it is very lengthy, but again, you have the update for 5600 student discipline, which is pretty lengthy. 6151 going in numerical order. Finance, it talks about bad checks. It just talks about if there is a bad check, how many days, a little bit of language in terms of, and if it's not collected, what we can do, what steps we can take. And sometimes there are various circumstances, and so it gives us some actions to take to talk about the bad checks. We've always had to deal with bad checks, so that's certainly, not many, but on occasion at the school level particularly. Of course, now since it's all CEP, eating free, that's taken away a lot of the collection and having to deal with bad checks, so it's not all that often. At the end of the year, state law passed several years ago and then we can look at when we turn it over to unclaimed property. So if there's outstanding checks, once in a while, if there's outstanding checks and we owe, let's say, a refund to someone for something, and maybe they purchased extra milk or an extra meal that isn't part of the free, but it's only for $1.50. By law, we're supposed to send the check out. Well, somebody may not think it's worth the bother. It may be outstanding on our books, so it allows us to turn it to unclaimed property. And again, we're just following the law based on that. So that's what that is. They're outstanding, stale checks to turn it over to unclaimed. It's usually very small. It's hardly ever anything large, but that requires us to take a look at that. So that gets into the bad checks / outstanding checks, 6151. 6320, purchases, is a long policy, but it's just a technical correction, as the summary says, so it isn't any major change. So it's a long policy, a couple of language changes. It talks about 8200 is going to be the state policy revised, but it's not revised yet. So this one gets us down to negotiation when all bids exceed budgeted amount. It's a number of pages in to the handout, so it's really just one main thing. It was passed in legislation. In construction projects, the board may establish a maximum budgeted amounts for each construction project. In the event that it goes over the budget, there's a process that allows for negotiation, which didn't used to be there before. It used to kind of go back and take a lot more work to do to go back to the SBA. And again, some counties have bonds they pass, some have local money, but it says we may negotiate with the lowest responsible bidder. Then there's a process to follow, so it doesn't make us start everything over. Gives us a little more flexibility when all bids exceed budgeted amount. So that's really technical correction, all that's there for our policy 6320, which is state purchasing policy 8200. The other new policy here in this round of updates, 7440.05, smart monitoring equipment. So this wasn't anything required to be included, but it was recommended, and first thought was like, well, do we have anything to, but actually we do have those detection systems in the high school for vaping, for example. So this is all new language. It's just kind of informing the public, informing our staff. Yes, we have smart monitoring equipment. Yes, it may be, yes, you may be subject to this monitoring, that we have these equipment in our buildings. If you take action to block or remove these sensors or anything, there's some consequences. Any information obtained may only be used for certain purposes. So it's kind of protection in there. It's to be implemented in accordance with this policy. The board will not accept or tolerate the improper use of smart sensoring equipment. So that's really a kind of a catch-all policy for smart monitoring equipment if we are monitoring for anything. And the one thing that comes to mind is detecting in the high school, some of the vape smoke and the like on that one. 7455, so that's all new. It's not green, but it's all new. It's all new on that one. 7455, accounting for capital assets. That's under my domain, and basically there, all that it is changing when we have to capitalize or put an asset on the books versus calling it a supply or something is $10,000. It was $5,000. Now it's $10,000. So if we bought a new, and some we will keep in track anyway. So, but technically, if a piece of equipment costs $6,000, we used to always capitalize that and depreciate it. Now, if it was $6,000, we could just expense it that very year. If we really want to track it, it doesn't mean that we can't capitalize it for a lower amount, but the requirement is $10,000 and above. So, just as things get more expensive, just a way of kind of slimming down the list of requirements if you want to do so. So that's 7455 capital assets. The next item, 7540.03. So here are some important ones again, not that there are any unimportant ones. Student technology acceptable use and safety. So .03 is student, .04 is staff. So here for student again, acceptable use. So years ago it was more about computers and acceptable use and websites and those sorts of things. Now we've added language like apps and services. And then we've added personal communication devices. Of course, it could be cell phone, it could be a watch. You know, we talk about different things that are there, acceptable use. You know, and we can, the board does have, the state has filtering to get E-rate money. It has to be filtered. The federal policy is you can't, so we get E-rate money to pay for internet and things like that. The state has filtering. On occasion, the board has the potential to add additional filters if that was so desired. Doesn't require it to be. Not at the school level, but at the county level, it can be done. If certain websites are blocked, it could be unblocked if there is an educational purpose and it's found to be appropriate. Based on those sorts of things. Staff members shall provide guidance and instruction for their students. Then it kind of defines what students should be trained on, and cyberbullying and social media and interacting with all that. And doesn't necessarily tell you how to do it, but it does say you need to do it. Talks about school email accounts. We've always had, but it kind of updates the language. A whole new section, artificial intelligence. So another mention here of artificial intelligence for schoolwork. And then, that it's there, it's not going away. What do we do with it? How do we get our hands around it? So it goes into a long section about artificial intelligence. It talks about using them responsibly and effectively. It can supplement, not replace, traditional learning methods. And so, again, goes to some of those regulations. And so again, yes, you can have discipline for plagiarism and those sorts of things, but obviously it's going to continue to be a task for our personnel to, there's software that will help you detect artificial intelligence, but I'm sure our staff will have to be trained on how do you detect, artificial intelligence. Was this paper written by artificial intelligence or was it written by a person? So I don't have the answers to that, except this is artificial intelligence and a policy to talk about it, at least have a conversation and with training. So,
and I would guess that this is one little change because at some point this will be a part of our educational processes.
It will. I mean, it is a way to get things done. Mm-hmm. It's what do we value as your work versus what do we value as we need to get the job done.
Right.
And so that's
how to be efficient and effective and accurate.
Correct.
I know AI stuff that you see summarizing answers sometimes is wrong.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Training is necessary.
Absolutely. And just because you find something somewhere doesn't mean it's accurate, or go for a search someplace. So yes, a lot of stuff there, but this is a policy to work with us and being updated in the student technology acceptable use and safety. The next policy, 7540.04, is staff acceptable use, which we've always had a staff policy, and a lot of the language is the same. It's not 100% the same because obviously two different audiences, but still, it has staff acceptable use. And one of the biggest changes is use of artificial intelligence for schoolwork. And so it gets into talking about it from the staff perspective and those sorts of things, kind of educating the staff on, yes, it can be used for this. Yes, it can be in accordance with teachers' directions. Students are required to cite and identify work, or explain and demonstrate how AI tools were used in creation of the work. So it's saying, like, you can maybe use AI if you cite it, if you say how it was used, if you understand how to use it. And staff are likewise required to identify all sources, including work generated with the use of AI tools, to avoid plagiarism. So again, how does the staff stay up to date on working with that? So again, AI is the largest change, artificial intelligence, to the acceptable use policy in 7540.04. 8330, student records. Student records, we sometimes call that directory data. It's an educational term talking about the data. Refers to directory and FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. It's a lot of regulations on what can be released, what cannot be released, and how do you store it, and do you ever do anything with it when it's gone, and how long do you keep it, and those sorts of things. And so green language would be new, again, and one section is designating or defining what is directory information. Most of those optional boxes were checked. Seems pretty basic, and it was looked at. The board designates as student directory information, then it lists all the information below, defining as directory information, including school assigned email accounts as directory information. And then parents and students, nothing new there, may refuse to allow the board to disclose anything based upon written notice. So it's a lot of federal requirements that's in here that we have to have. It talks about inspection of information collection instrument. Parent of a student or eligible or a student, right to inspect and request some of the information. Superintendent responsibilities, developing guidelines for proper storage. Not new, just highlighting that as a checkbox there to make sure that we have that. So again, some of the largest change is identifying and listing what we want to have as directory information, student records. And again, anybody in the room, if you ever want to add anything as I go through this, feel free to add to it.
I have a question.
Yes.
On those directory information, some of these have like bolded X's and then some don't, or is it just a
It's just
typo?
when it was being typed in, whether it was bolded or not, and maybe the default was bold, so it doesn't mean anything different.
Okay.
So maybe you didn't pick it the first time, went back the second time, and the bold font wasn't on. So no, that shouldn't make any difference other than how it looks on that. So if it's check marked with an X, we are going to include, when they do their edits, it's going to be included based on that. So that is 8330, student records. 8390, animals on school property. Of course, we know various conversations over the years, whether it be a ball game, or whether it be a therapy dog, or whether it be a service dog, or anything like that. It talks about allergies. Some people have very severe allergies, and what talks about that. So some emotional support animal is defined. Therapy dog, of course, now with CIS, I don't think there are very many therapy dogs before communities and schools. Now, of course, we do. It talks about defining therapy dog. It gets into that regulation, talks about the vaccination, licensing, the veterinary requirements, and non-service animals, what happens with that. And so again, emotional support animals for students, if we would have to work with that. Therapy dogs, some of the getting more additional information about that. And a couple of things we may have to come back and check a box or two on, but the basic concept here is updating. And if the employees needed a service animal, if we had an employee that needed assistance, talks about language for that. Service animals for parents or vendors or visitors, what if they had to have a service animal with them, and so it gets into those. So again, anything in green is new, and anything in pink, strike through. So it used to say use of service animals. Well, now we know there's more animals than just service animals, so it says animals on school property, a change in that title.
Let me ask a question on this one too. In that first green paragraph, it says West Virginia pre-K classroom. Should that be pre-K through 12, or is it just pre-K?
Preschool has its own policy, and in the pre-K policy, this is specified.
So they can't have little turtles in a pre-K.
They cannot have, they can have fish if parents are notified and give permission, but
Them
no
pretty little
turtles.
turtles, they can't have little turtles.
No turtles, it
Okay.
specifies turtles.
Thank
I
you.
saw that.
So pre-K, so it is,
Yeah.
Turtles have salmonella.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're actually cute but very dirty.
And that's why.
So yes, a good conversation piece. So we found out that is pre-K classroom for that. So again, some existing language there, but some updated language, animals on school property. 8450, control of casual contact communicable diseases. So casual contact gets into some of the safeguards. Obviously, not a whole lot of new language. It's defining, which some of that was in existing policy, but redefining what does it mean to be a casual contact communicable disease. It talks about school nurse shall report, what the school nurse should do, school administrator, what to do if a student has it, local health department. So that's a pretty lengthy, and so some of that language was there before in the pink, stricken out, the green again replacing it. And so that is something our school nurses, our administrators will have to be on top of as we deal with the casual contact communicable diseases. That gets into updated language there for that. Then we get to 8453, non-casual. So how do we define non-casual communicable diseases? So there's language in there, and so it gets into AIDS, hepatitis, I guess some others that are listed there in A through E. And so then language from the Bureau for Public Health, legislative rule, some new language that goes in there, state board policy reference. Again, once you get past the first part, not much change, but there is definitely some additional language on how to handle that. So once again, our personnel will have to be up to date on working with that information. There's various trainings required every so often on a lot of these things, but this is some updated language based on that. There's a recension of a policy, which all of that means, it was like some language that the first policy talked about extracurricular trips and some of that, and this is this is a policy that the states decided to do away with, so that's all a strike through. So that 8640 is kind of being combined with the first policy we talked about, so there's no need for 86, so the whole policy is being rescinded in 8640. So that's the kind of the first section up into the blue. I kind of put a blue divider in there for you. The next section we get into, I'm going to go to the quote-unquote May update here on Neola. You don't need to know. So the first part of there's two additional items that we're going to include tonight, which is two separate updates from Neola. First section we just talked about, had a summary. This is just a definitions update. So this is in our policy manual with Neola, certain terms are defined. So if it refers to what does it mean to be a instructional person, what does it mean a classroom setting, this is defined. So a couple of changes to classroom setting, for example, in the green, an environment where instruction of activities are occurring, because some of this will come up in things like the cell phone policy or electronic device policy. What does it mean for instructional day? We've had some reference to it before, but it defines more clearly instructional day. That's in that period. Personal communication devices are now gone. Now it's called personal electronic device. So and that's going to be more detailed in the next policy. Any portable device capable of wireless communication or computing, including but not limited to cell phones, tablets, laptops, smartwatches, anything else hasn't been invented yet, not limited to, And portable gaming system. Many gaming systems these days are just like a computer. You can play a game, but also do all sorts of other stuff on there. So that's personal electronic device. So those are the main updates to the definitions that will go in to a bylaw section of our policy manual. So there now, it's updating those definitions that are there. Now we get to personal electronic devices, which again is after your blue divider. So it used to say personal communication devices after. So all that first part is going away. Basically, it's taking everything away in the old policy, and then it's starting personal electronic devices. It says are defined in bylaw 0100. That was what we just looked at. That's the definition. Then it starts, and then it has some X's to be chosen to say, during the instructional day, PEDs will be stored, and where will they be stored? And it says as determined by school administrator. Okay, that's an example. It's not the whole policy. Then we get to some exemptions. If you have a medical need or there's some IEP or something, then it gets into that. And then we have exemptions again where it talks about school principal, that sort of item. And then we get extracurricular activities. What do you do if you have a cell phone? And so anyway, pretty lengthy. Again, so the policy has existed, but it hasn't existed with a lot of these regulations and restrictions. Device policy has existed, but now with the state requiring schools to have a more particular, well-defined policy about this, then we're certainly adding some basic options here. And it talks about elementary schools, first, second, third offense, subsequent offense, middle and high schools. What will happen first, second, third offense, and subsequent defense, and level 2, level 3 offense, and what does that mean? Policy communication and oversight, which again is not new language, but because we are now focusing on this cell phone more than ever, it is more important than ever to have policy communication and oversight.
JP, I see you didn't mark the field trips. You're going to allow them on field trips? On student transportation, second bullet down.
Right, so under student transportation, I don't know, Nicole.
I did the first one. It says students may use PEDs while riding to and from school on a school bus. So
Okay.
that was the first option.
All right,
was
so
chosen.
under student transportation, there were two options, and then coming back, we can mark through that. So there were two options under student. We put an X by the first option. May use PEDs while riding on a school bus or other board-approved vehicle during school-sponsored activity at the discretion of the bus. So that would say anytime you're in a school bus that's board-approved, you can use them. It's not limiting it to ball game or a non-ball game, or not saying anything about off-campus field trips. So in that case, I guess it would be, if they follow the policy as above, it would be allowed if they're going to Spruce Knob or something like that. I guess we're not saying that's
That just
prohibited.
says in vehicles. It doesn't say, does it, unless I'm reading it wrong. Does that allow a field trip, kids to be on their phones on a field
Or
trip?
on a
They
school
have-
bus. We can mark that. We can include or on a school bus, I think.
Are those parentheses maybe in the wrong? I see what you're
I
saying.
I think we need to mark that as an option, or on the school bus.
Yes,
Take that
okay.
out.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that it says at the discretion of the bus driver, because some bus drivers advocate for the students to have devices, and some are completely none at all.
How we behave for sitting there playing games and
So
stuff.
I think you need to leave that up to the driver.
Well, when you're on a field trip, it doesn't say they're prohibited. We didn't mark that. did we?
Right. At this point,
Right,
we
the
did.
first option is what's marked, and it says that they can have them at the discretion of the bus driver, the classroom teacher, or the advisor or sponsor at the end of that trip. And that distracting behavior that creates an unsafe environment will not be tolerated.
Yeah,
So
so
that
we
whole-
would need to check that box, check the
The second-
parentheses.
the
The
second,
second
yeah,
one
this-
where it says
Yeah,
on
because
to
the
make
first one just
sure.
talks about transportation.
Well, right, and that's the thing, when you have 20 or 30 policies
Yeah.
and 100 X's, it does become pretty overwhelming. But yes, that is something that needs to be changed on that particular one. And so we will try to double check on all of these to make sure the boxes and appropriate check boxes are checked as we go forward with that. So it's a good point of discussion. Again, it does go into the different requirements and regulations, and as has been referenced, I think, before the meeting, Randolph County is putting it out, making a point of emphasis. I think Upshur County did it several weeks ago. I saw in the Buchanan News that they had like a Microsoft Office form for feedback. So I don't know what we will come up with for that, but it is a big community talking point. It will be to get some feedback, or at least make awareness of this particular change, because there are a lot of strong opinions for and against cell phones, and I'm sure we'll have other opinions expressed on that as well.
Are you two ready for your phones to light up every day?
Anyhow, so that is a listing, the first grouping of policies that we discussed. The second, smaller listing with definitions and cell phone policy. Any comments? You can obviously talk to Mrs. Hebner or myself, or send an email, and anytime if you say, hey, what is this? Should this box be checked or not? We can take a look at it. We'll also do the same internally. And again, it'll come back at a future meeting. I don't know which future will come back for a second and final reading, and take appropriate time necessary to make sure that we have something that is what the board would like for us to have, and what we have to have based upon law and regulations.
And the state has set no guidelines at all. The state has set none, there's no ideas from the state.
Derek, are you aware of anything for cell phones,
Yeah.
electric devices? Right.
When they had the meeting with the stakeholders about it, what the stakeholders wanted was flexibility. So the policy from the department allows for each county to create what they believe is best for their kids.
You may have 55 different policies then. Yeah.
I mean, I think some
So
of the,
child transfers from Grant to here is gonna be confused when, you know, the policy's gonna be completely different. Probably not, but just one county, you know, like you were saying about Marshall County or whatever.
I think a lot of the base language, I mean, some of this is based upon criteria, intent of the legislature or state board policy. But yeah, some of these options, like what is the penalty? How do you define certain things? Some districts may have different philosophies on penalties, and when do you allow them, when do you not allow them, and those sorts of
Now,
things.
what will our kids attending VOTEC, what, they go under Grant County's policy? While they're there, they'll be under Grant County's policy, and which may be different from ours.
And Grant County will be looking at theirs in August, and they said they would share it with us, and Hardy has shared theirs with us. And we reviewed
So
Hardy's.
our kids using the VOTEC will have to understand the policy county.
I think VOTEC already has a policy for VOTEC that says no cell phones,
Okay,
I believe.
I think so, yes.
that makes it simple.
So, but the VOTEC has their own.
Okay.
Can't hear the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's the matter?
They can't hear our meeting. People are trying to listen.
They said they can't hear us.
Be accused of muting that part.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. I mean, it's showing everything fine on this end, so I'm not quite sure
It's on their
what
end.
is on that end.
Maybe it's on their end.
Well, it's being recorded, and so even if it's not streaming live, I think that's a backup way that we can post that. So I'll have to double check with Eric when we get there for that. But that's all I have under policies here for the first reading for that.
I recommend that this be approved for the first reading.
Our superintendent's recommending that we approve the policies that have been presented to us as a first reading.
With changes.
And, well, there will be changes to it before we get it through the second time. This is not the final approval. This is just a first reading, an opportunity for it to go out. And we can encourage folks to look over, we can encourage folks to comment, we can get our administrators to comment. But this is the first reading, it puts it out there, gets us in the process. And final approval, the second reading, the final approval will come at a later date. And we can talk about that. Figure out if you want to do it at the next meeting or the August 4th meeting. August 5th.
Let's do August 5th.
August 5th, we'll aim for August 5th for the second reading. But you can bring comments before. So we have a recommendation for the approval of the policies as presented as a first reading, not as a final copy. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions? Then all in favor of approving these policies as a first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion passes. We have approved the first reading, not the final one. Administrative flow chart.
It's changing.
One meeting later.
TBD.
We have a vacancy. I do think we did fill one and emptied another. Yes, Ashley Johnson has been filled, and she is here this evening receiving some training, so to start getting ready for when she starts, which will be next week. So I will continue to update that as we progress through the month.
Okay. Any questions on this? We don't need to take an action on this, do we?
I think so.
Okay, so we have that. New business would be student transfers.
Okay, and I have two student transfers for your approval, TR 2526 number 3 and number 4.
And I approve, I recommend that we approve that, please.
Our superintendent's recommending that we approve the student transfers, 2526-3 and 2526-4. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or any questions?
I know you wouldn't allow Carrie, it will not affect the classroom size,
It will
right?
not. We are in good shape.
I shouldn't even ask that because you would not allow if it was going to,
I
right?
appreciate that you always ask that question. No, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Then all in favor of approving student transfers 2526-3 and 2526-4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion passes. MOU with Epic.
This MOU with Epic is for the 25-26 year, the basic membership for Epic, which again is based upon number of students. It is not based on the 1,400 floor. It's based on our 851 students that we have, or 848, I guess, based upon the second month of FTE. So again, for the benefits, and there is some separate billing for Medicaid and bus training and things like that, but I do know those of you that are on the board with Epic and for the support that they give us, getting $4,240 is a pretty small fee in the whole scheme of things to be a member. So this is a memorandum of agreement and a membership fee to continue with Epic for the 25-26 school year.
And I recommend that the MOU with Epic be approved.
Our superintendent's recommending that the MOU with Epic be approved. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Should I abstain for this vote?
No.
No.
You absolutely can participate.
Okay.
You're not an owner of Epic.
Any questions or discussion? Then all in favor of approving the MOU with Epic, please signify by saying aye.
Uh-huh.
And opposed, no. Motion passes. That finishes up new business and brings us to other, and we have superintendent's update.
And at this time, there are no updates.
No update for the superintendent. Conference and meeting update.
I have none scheduled for the next 2.5 weeks, thankfully.
No meetings for the next 2.5 weeks, good. Except for,
Except
when we get to the next meeting date, we need to set a new meeting date in between the August 5th and today and August 5th. And based on prior discussion, I think that July 17th works for everybody. So with no objections, we'll have a meeting on July 17th at 5:30 and a meeting on August the 5th at 5:30, both of those here in this room. And that finishes our meeting, and I will now accept a motion